Welcome to The Backstory, a podcast from the North Dakota News Cooperative that takes an in-depth look at the stories we're reporting for you. I'm Sabrina Halvorson, CEO of the North Dakota News Cooperative. Joining me is Michael Standaert, our lead reporter. So Michael, the story we're talking about today is headlined, "Despite Challenges, Childcare Looks to Innovate in North Dakota." And this is a story that you have kind of followed a bit because you have done other things on childcare around the state. And it's an important topic for families around the state because childcare has been very difficult for a lot of people to find. Now, this isn't something that affects my life, so I'm not as informed on it as some other people are, but to be able to have access to childcare is, vital if people want to hold jobs outside of the house. So what are
Yeah.
some of the things that you found while you were researching this?
Yeah, so I've done several stories on childcare over the last few years, and I mean affordability, availability, staffing, shortfalls, these kind of challenges are persisting. They probably always will. So, this time I was speaking with a lot of people across the state and kind of honed in on this innovative program that's run through the James Valley Career and Technology Center, as kind of an interesting collaboration, interesting development that other areas might perhaps emulate. So they have at the James Valley Career and Technology Center, they've set up a program that allows high schoolers there to go through a child development associate certification and also feed into the child care that they've set up, this little Blue Jays nest at the CTC. So it works in a variety of ways where it will, it brings more slots into the community. So I think they've added about 60 slots, mostly for staff at the Jamestown public school system, but they also have some slots open for people in the community. But it also allows them to kind of get a feeder system going for training staff. Some of those students might eventually become staff at that center or at other centers. Some might go on to go into other education studies. Some might go elsewhere. But it was an interesting kind of innovation of how to address some of these issues all in one spot. They went to the Lake Region State College in Devil's Lake and kind of looked at their 2-year a program for college students on doing the CDA. That's slightly different. That doesn't feed into one center or another, but the way they've done it is pretty cool about how they'll help kind of address that issue in Jamestown and address all these issues kind of at once.
So that's a really neat program that takes people who are interested in becoming childcare providers and really gives them all of the training and then sets them out so they can go out and have these careers around the state. So you're not only helping people with their careers, but then you're helping the parents who need childcare as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this a lot, I mean, from talking to them, this kind of allows those students to explore that career possibility earlier than say if they went to college and did that program or went to work in a a childcare center on the state and then did that certification on the side. This allows them to kind of get in there earlier, decide whether they want to do that or not, perhaps pursue elementary or middle school or other education as well. So it just gives them, more opportunity to really kind of try things out.
Yeah, I think that's really neat too because we're kind of coming back to an understanding that maybe full 4-year college situations are not for everybody, but other types of training work really well for some people. And so this gives them the option, like you're saying, instead of having to go to the full college first, and there are a lot of people who can't afford college these days, or it just doesn't work for their situation, but they now have a program where they can go get this training.
Yeah, and kind of traditionally, a lot of these childcare positions, starting positions, don't tend to pay very much.
Yeah.
So, kind of getting a high school student in to help staff and also learn at the same time, and perhaps get a certification that once they get this certification, they can get higher rates of pay. They can potentially become a director of a center at some point. Start their own center if they want. So this gives them an earlier start and kind of gets them going on that path if that's the one they choose to go on.
And then for this story, and then other previous stories that you have done on childcare situations, you've talked with childcare centers around the state to see what's going on with their in their centers and in their areas. And then also you've looked into some programs for parents that help them afford childcare. So what's the latest on that?
So it's different in different parts of the state. Kind of so in some areas there's just a really huge need for the infrastructure just to increase the numbers of slots available for childcare. So that's one situation. Like out in Williston, they just need more facilities. They need more childcare slots. In other areas, there might be enough slots. It's just that it becomes less affordable. So there's this CCAP program that the state helps individuals and families pay for childcare if they meet the requirements. There's some concern that might be changed with some eligibility changes for that program because of all the different federal changes recently. So that's something that some centers had heard, but they got an email from the Department of Health and Human Services in September saying the eligibility requirements were going to change in November, and there was a lot of pushback to that. So that's been put on pause for now. I don't know. I've talked to the DHHS people to see if they could give me some more information, but they haven't been able to do that yet. There's no final change made. But this has allowed more people over time, more families to get kids into childcare when they couldn't afford it. Right now, with a lot of the different changes to Medicaid and SNAP, there's some concerns that those eligibility requirements and changes could impact families' ability to get their kids into childcare, as well as some staff at some of these centers who rely on those programs, and just make it more difficult for them to meet those costs. So that's something to definitely follow going forward.
And that's something that you will be following too, right?
Yeah,
As things
yeah,
change. Yeah.
I'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah. All right. Well, so ultimately, what is it that you hope that people take away from this article?
From this article, I mean, I think, talking with people around the state who knew this was going on at the James Valley Career and Technology Center, they thought this was, a very innovative program that could possibly be, duplicated elsewhere. So that would be interesting to see if other, CTEs or CTCs do look at offering something like this. And then something else that came out was that a lot of schools are starting to offer, or trying to find space for childcare within their facilities so they can keep teachers, but also offer some slots within the community as well. So that's another development to keep an eye on if in your communities, I think.
And again, that story was headlined, "Despite Challenges, Childcare Looks to Innovate in North Dakota." You can read that story on our website at newscoopnd.org or in one of our local newspaper partners. For the North Dakota News Cooperative, I'm Sabrina Halvorson. This has been The Backstory.